When the host of the infamous talk show Atheist mocked Elon Musk's beliefs live on air, nobody expected Elon to stay calm. But just when the crowd laughed, everything changed. What followed wasn't just a verbal battle, it was a bizarre chain of events that made the host question everything he thought he knew. And the ending? So shocking, it left even the audience unsure if what they saw was real. Under the harsh white lights of Studio 12B in downtown Manhattan, the cameras rolled as the live audience erupted into their usual blend of forced laughter and caffeinated applause. This was Atheist, a wildly popular, late-night talk show known for controversy, cynicism, and the host's unfiltered takes on religion, spirituality, and occasionally, the guests themselves. Tonight, the target was Elon Musk. He sat calmly in the center seat. No suit, no entourage, just a black t-shirt, jeans, and an oddly serene expression that almost annoyed the host, Damien Strix. Damien thrived on poking holes in ideology. His charm wasn't in kindness, it was in demolition. And now, the world's most eccentric billionaire had wandered into his arena. Damien smiled. But it wasn't warm. So Elon, he began, leaning forward with that theatrical sparkle in his eye. I heard you believe in something. Is it aliens this week? Or God? You tend to change your software update every few months. Laughter. Predictable. Elon simply tilted his head, his voice low and steady. It's not about belief. It's about understanding what we don't know yet. The audience snickered again. Damien pressed further, now sharpening the knife. So you're telling me that the man building rockets to escape Earth still believes in an invisible man in the sky? More laughter. A few claps. Elon didn't respond right away. He just blinked slowly, as if something had passed behind his eyes, a thought, maybe, or a warning. Then he said something strange. I don't think you're prepared for what's coming next. The room fell quiet for half a beat. Damien chuckled, brushing it off. Let me guess. Are we about to be abducted? Or are you going to baptize me in engine coolant? But Elon's gaze didn't waver, and then the lights flickered. Just once. Everyone assumed it was a technical glitch. The studio crew looked up. A producer whispered into her headset. The cameras stayed live, but then the temperature dropped. Noticeably, audience members rubbed their arms. A shiver passed over Damien. He laughed nervously and glanced toward the crew. Did someone leave the cryo chamber open again? But Elon looked calm, almost expectant. I'm not here to debate you, he said slowly. But I didn't come alone. And then it happened. One of the overhead lights shattered. The audience screamed as sparks rained down. The stage went dark, then blinked back on an emergency red. A deep, vibrating hum began to echo through the room, like machinery. Or worse, like chanting. Damien stood up, his showman bravado cracking. Okay, what the hell is this? Is this some SpaceX prank? But Elon stayed seated, silent. On the studio screens behind him, which had previously been looping animations of solar panels and satellites, something else had taken over. Grainy, distorted footage that showed a desert, a massive doorway carved into stone, and a figure walking toward it. The studio fell dead silent. The figure on screen stopped, turned. It was Elon, but not the one sitting in the chair. Damien's voice broke through the hush. What the hell are we watching? Elon finally spoke. The problem with mocking things you don't understand is that sometimes they understand you. Another camera light exploded. A siren began to sound, but not from the building system, from somewhere else. A low, pulsing frequency that made everyone's teeth ache. People began to move, some stumbling, some trying to flee, but the doors were now sealed, electrically locked. Security rushed the stage. Damien backed up, finally shouting off script. Cut the feed. Cut the... The feed didn't cut. In the control room, engineers were frantically slamming buttons, but the screens wouldn't obey. Everything was broadcasting something else now. Not the show, not the guests, but a countdown. Red, glowing, unblinking. And behind it, a shadow growing larger. It had Elon's voice. But it wasn't saying anything comforting. It just whispered one thing. Damien, would you still laugh if the sky answered back? The countdown on the studio screen ticked down from 3:59, glowing blood red against the black background. The audience, hundreds of people, sat paralyzed. Some stood frozen in the aisles, clutching their phones, silently live-streaming what felt like a hallucination. But this was no illusion. The feed had hijacked itself. In the control room, the lead technician yanked cords and slammed keys, his face pale. It's not us, he whispered to his assistant. We're not broadcasting anymore. Something else is. Back on the stage, Damien Strix, host of Atheist, was no longer smiling. His hands trembled at his sides. "Okay, Elon, this is impressive," he muttered, trying to salvage his confidence. "You hacked my show? Fine. You made your point." But Elon didn't even look at him. He was watching the countdown. 2:46. Another flicker of the lights. Suddenly, a low, bone-rattling vibration filled the floor beneath their feet. Not just the studio. It was as if something massive was moving underneath the building. Audience members began to scream now, panic setting in like a virus. One woman fainted. 2 men tried to rip the exit doors open. Still locked. Then came the sound no one could explain, a voice from nowhere. Not over the PA system. Not through speakers. It was inside their heads. "You mock the unseen, but what you fear is that it might see you." Damien's knees buckled. He grabbed the desk. "What is this? Who's doing this?" And then, the screens changed. The desert from before was gone. Now, the screen showed each person in the audience. One by one, their faces flickering in and out. Every person was being displayed in real time, but younger. A version of themselves at childhood. Innocent. Unshaped. Then, side by side, a version of who they became. One woman collapsed in tears. Another man turned to stone, eyes wide at the image of his former self, hopeful and smiling, now juxtaposed with the bitter, broken man he'd become. It wasn't an attack. It was a mirror. And Elon, he was still seated, hands folded, watching. "I didn't do this," he said quietly, "but I might have triggered it." Damien turned to him, sweat pouring down his temple. "Triggered what, Elon? Some kind of spiritual AI?" Elon's answer chilled the room. "No. Something older." 0:45. In the distance, helicopters began to swarm above the studio. News alerts flashed across the world. Live broadcast interrupted. Unexplained global signal. In cafes, airports, and households around the globe, the feed couldn't be turned off. Every device now showed the countdown. One screen, one voice, one warning. This is not about belief. It is about remembrance. The red numbers dropped into the final seconds. Damien fell into his chair, mumbling, "What happens at 0?" Elon turned toward him slowly, the calm still eerily present. "You stopped asking questions long ago, but they never stopped watching." 3, 2, 1. The screen went black, then white, then a single image. A door, ancient, towering, slowly opening, and something stepped out. The studio sat bathed in a sickly white light as the image of the door consumed every screen. It was impossibly tall, carved from dark stone that pulsed faintly with veins of flickering energy, blue and gold, like lightning trapped beneath the surface. The moment it began to open, the room changed. Not just in light or sound, but in pressure. Like reality itself was bending inward. The audience began to scream, some clutching their ears, others simply staring in stunned silence. Damien Strix was no longer speaking. His mouth was open, but his voice was gone, swallowed by the overwhelming hum that now filled the space. Elon didn't move. His eyes were locked on the door, unblinking, waiting. Something had crossed the threshold. Not a being exactly, not in the human sense, but a presence. It didn't cast a shadow. It absorbed them. Lights dimmed. Cameras failed. Everything electronic in the studio died in unison. Phones went black. The emergency generators failed. And yet, the image remained. Glowing. Expanding. As if projected from nowhere. 1,000-year silence poured into the room like liquid, drowning every thought. Then, a voice, not heard, but felt, echoed across the bones of everyone present. "You have asked for proof through mockery. Now you receive it through memory." At the back of the room, people began to weep uncontrollably. Childhood traumas resurfaced without warning. Forgotten dreams. Lost family members. One man collapsed, clutching the air and whispering a name he hadn't spoken in decades. It was like the entity behind the door was unearthing every buried truth, every lie we told ourselves to survive. Damien, trembling now, managed a whisper. "Make it stop, please." Elon finally moved. He turned to the host, his face illuminated by the eerie glow. "You asked why people believe," he said. "It's not because of what they're told. It's because sometimes they remember." A fresh surge of pressure hit the building. The walls groaned. A deep crack spread across the ceiling above the stage. The entity had not fully emerged, but its reach was undeniable. The screen showed images now, fast, flickering, relentless. Civilizations long gone. Symbols no historian had ever documented. Stars forming, dying, reborn. A hand touching water, sparking galaxies. Then, Earth. Not as it is, but as it was. A world without buildings. Without borders. Pure. Alive. And in the sky, the door, the same door, always watching. Damien fell to his knees, tears streaking down his face. He wasn't alone. The audience, the crew, even hardened producers who once prided themselves on control, were sobbing, paralyzed, broken open by a force they couldn't explain. It wasn't faith. It wasn't fear. It was recognition. Elon stood, and when he did, the lights above flickered with a final pulse, one last heartbeat before darkness. They gave us silence, he said, so we could choose whether to listen. Then, the door began to close. Slowly. Reluctantly. As if waiting for one last question to be asked, but none came. Only the sound of breathing, and the quiet hum of something ancient receding into the unknown. And just before the image disappeared completely, the entity whispered one final sentence. Mockery awakens memory. But memory awakens everything. The studio went black. All power restored. The screens returned to their default loop. No countdown, no door, no sign anything had happened. Except for the people. They would never be the same. The feed, they discovered later, had never been recorded. The cameras showed nothing. The footage didn't exist, but the headlines did. Mass hysteria? Shared delusion? Religious stunt? Elon Musk cult? Theories erupted. Videos circulated. But every file eventually corrupted. Every post mysteriously vanished. Only the people in the room remembered, and even they couldn't agree on what exactly they had seen. But one thing was certain. Damien Strix never aired another episode. He vanished from public life, sold his penthouse, closed every account. Rumors say he's still out there, somewhere in the desert, painting the door over and over again, trying to remember what stepped through. And Elon? He never spoke about it again. Except once. At a press conference, months later, when asked if he believed in God, he smiled, tilted his head, and said, "I believe memory is older than faith," then walked off stage. In the weeks after the Atheist broadcast, those who had watched it live, either in the studio or on the mysteriously hijacked global feed, began to change. Not outwardly, not in a way anyone could track, but in the private spaces between thoughts, in how they dreamed, in the strange patterns they began to see in clouds, cracks, shadows. Psychologists called it mass suggestion. A spiritualist cult in Oregon called it the awakening. And Elon Musk? He disappeared, for real this time. No tweets, no camera flashes, no SpaceX launches or midnight interviews. He had vanished from the public grid, and no one, not even his inner circle, knew where he had gone. Not until the footage surfaced. A single video uploaded to an encrypted forum on the dark web, titled Only, He Found the Second Door. The video showed Elon standing at the edge of a rocky cliff at night, not speaking, just watching something enormous. Beyond the lens, only silence. Then the camera panned. It revealed a series of jagged stone pillars rising out of the desert like a broken code, arranged in a pattern that wasn't geometric but intentional. Like a message. In the center, another door. Smaller than the one from the broadcast, but real, tangible. It hummed faintly in the night air, each vibration striking the microphone like a whisper just out of range. The video ended abruptly, but not before Elon turned to the camera. His eyes reflected the same pale blue light as the door. And though his mouth didn't move, the audio captured one word. Remember, then static. It vanished from the site within minutes. But not before it was downloaded. Copied. Shared. Millions saw it. Then millions more claimed they dreamt the same door before the video even existed. Governments issued statements. Denials. Cybersecurity units launched investigations. But no one could explain the nature of the file, its untraceable code, or the way it embedded itself into hard drives like a living thing. Meanwhile, strange anomalies began cropping up across the globe. Power grids flickering at exactly 3:33 a.m. Radios picking up chanting in unknown languages. Children waking up crying, whispering about the watchers behind the wall. And then, Damien Strix reappeared. Not on TV, not in print, but on a desolate live stream from an undisclosed location. The man who once ridiculed belief now sat in front of a rusted doorframe, identical to the one in Elon's video, surrounded by dusty candles and cracked stone. "I was wrong," he said, his voice a rasp, his eyes sunken but lucid. "This isn't about God or science. It's about something buried deep in us, older than either." He looked off screen. "They showed me what's next. What we forgot. What we ran from. The stream glitched. For a frame, something appeared behind the door. Not a being, a shape, too many limbs. No clear face. But eyes, thousands of them, blinking in sequence. And then the screen cut to black. No one could replicate the footage. No one who tried could sleep afterward. And those who watched it alone? Some never woke up. Hospitals began reporting a phenomenon quietly labeled the REM collapse, patients with perfectly healthy vitals slipping into comas, whispering the same final phrase before fading out. It's opening again. But where was Elon? Off-grid. Undetectable. Until a Tesla engineer found a message buried in an internal server, hidden behind 5 levels of encryption. It read, "They remembered me before I remembered myself. And now, I see it clearly. The door was never a portal. It was a mirror, and something is coming through, not from beyond, but from below. No one knows what below means, or how many doors there are. But one thing is certain, this was never about a talk show. Never about faith versus logic. This was a test. And the next part? It begins when the final door opens. It opened without warning, not in a studio, not in a desert, but in orbit. The International Space Station had been transmitting routine logs when one of its onboard cameras caught something just outside Earth's atmosphere, a rupture. It didn't tear space. It folded it, like paper creased from the inside out. And from that fold, light spilled. Not brilliant, not warm, cold, heavy. As if the universe itself had grown tired of hiding what came before time. Back on Earth, millions watched in real time. The footage wasn't meant for public release, but the signal had been hijacked again. And as people stared into the sky from cities, forests, oceans, and living rooms, they saw something impossible. The door. Not ancient stone this time, not carved, but formed of shimmering black metal. Polished. Silent. Orbiting just above Earth, spinning slowly, like it was waiting. Inside a secure underground facility in the Swiss Alps, a group of scientists had been monitoring similar anomalies for weeks. They called it Event Horizon Echo Type X, but they didn't understand it. No one did. The only clue? A piece of audio that had emerged from the final layer of Elon Musk's encrypted message days earlier. It was a whisper, barely audible beneath layers of static, but it wasn't in English. It wasn't in any known language. Still, linguists recognized the pattern, ancient phonetics. Root tones from proto-languages thought extinct. And one phrase stood out, repeated again and again. We were the builders. But we forgot the key. Then came the flash. Across the planet, all electronics died for precisely 7 minutes. In that void of silence, humans were forced to listen, not to the outside, but to within. And what they heard broke them. Memories not their own, voices from bloodlines long gone, images of stars never seen by any telescope. And behind it all, a presence, familiar, watching, waiting. When the power returned, the skies above were no longer the same. The door had fully opened, and Elon was standing inside it. Broadcast from every screen, without camera, without source, was an image of him suspended in zero gravity. Around him, shapes swirled like ink in water, beings not of form, but memory, each one shimmering like thoughts made flesh. Elon's voice echoed, not as a man speaking, but as a force reminding. You mocked the silence. You mocked belief. But belief was the alarm clock. He extended his hand. Now it's time to wake up. And one by one, things began to change. Across the globe, people started remembering, not facts or names, but truths that had no origin. Artists began drawing symbols they'd never seen. Children spoke phrases in languages lost for 10,000 years. Sleepwalkers gathered in open fields, pointing at the stars, murmuring the same word, return. And Damien Strix, now a ghost of the man he'd once been, was seen walking into the sea at dawn, whispering, "We were warned, but we laughed." Back in space, the door pulsed once more. Then, just as silently as it arrived, it began to close. Elon didn't step out. He didn't need to. He had already delivered the message. We are not alone. We never were. But the most terrifying truth? We might not belong here. And the door? It didn't lead to heaven. It didn't lead to hell. It led to the beginning,